am calling Mr. Karthik, who is head of EV and mobility, Ashok Leyland. I think he can show us some light on the bus-related challenges and what is going to happen in the EV side, especially focusing on buses, trucks, whether it is possible to cover long distances, because a lot of challenges around. So we had a chat briefly before, so probably I think this is the right time we can explore all of that.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Karthik. I look after the electric vehicle and e-mobility business for Ashok Leyland. Very small business unit and relatively new. I thought I'll just limit it to 3 topics given the time. One is public safety. I think very little has been done about it and we are a little concerned. So I'm using every forum I get to start pushing for safety. The second is the business models which we can look at to actually enhance the ability to bring in e-mobility faster. And finally about the product. So these 3 areas I'm focusing on. The first one, safety. There are a lot of aspects, and we first realized it when I met a fire department official by chance in a restaurant in Ahmedabad where we are running electric vehicles. And then I realized, oh my God, he doesn't know how to deal with a lithium battery fire. And we panicked and we actually did all the first responder training for the entire city. But I think the first part is public awareness. They need to have all life-saving equipment distributed along these routes, because this is 650 volts you're dealing with. So it's fatal. So we need to be very smart about implementing. All my discussion is based on commercial vehicles. It's limited to commercial vehicles. So we started about 330 volts DC. It's not a 24 volt or a 48 volt system. The second part is emergency evacuation. The public need to be aware of how it's done, and of course how do they behave if an incident occurs. So there is a fair amount of training that's given, and we've generated material. Now we are telling Road Transport Ministry, heavy industries, anyone who cares, that we'll give the material, we'll even support it free of cost, just get it done across the country, because we are going to have 5,600 buses running in about 18 months. The second part, first responders, fire station, police, hospitals, the emergency wards, etc. So we need to teach them about the safety features that they need to adopt while going about the rescue. The second part is, when there is an abnormality, what exactly are the responses? And they have to do periodic drills of this so that they don't forget it or they don't feel alien to it when the event occurs. And lastly, the precautions that they need to take. And EV hazards, there are quite a few, but the main ones are battery fires. It doesn't matter in a car, I guess. To some extent, if you put in as much battery as a Tesla, it matters. But if you're sensible like Mahindra Electric, it's not very important. But we should remember that this battery fire does not go off when you dunk it in water. If you take it out and keep it outside, it will restart. So it has to stay in a pool of water, or else you need to keep it cool for a prolonged amount of time. So the fire doesn't go off when you see the smoke and bubbles stop. It doesn't go off, it comes back. So that's the nature of this fire. It doesn't always happen, but there is a strong chance that it will happen time and again. And the other one is the high voltage in the vehicle. So if you see something, you shouldn't be running around touching things in the bus. It's all 650 volts direct current, so you have to be that much more careful. And last is, of course, the actual activity of training. So we have to go out to these people, and we are treating this as a separate agenda, because otherwise people forget to plan to train, and they only talk about the training that they carried out, but it's an ongoing activity and it has to continue. So my request to CII, if it's possible, please start campaigning for this. We are going to have 5,600 buses in the country in 18 months. And this is across 65 cities. And we need to protect our people. The next one, I'm going into the business models. Opportunities, there are quite a few, which doesn't cost the government much money. but it actually helps them increase revenue and improve the viability of electric vehicles, which are relatively expensive upfront. The first one is, of course, to allow permit responses, the licenses which are granted. Right now, if I have a school bus, even if it is safe to use it for another application, it's illegal for me to use it. And a school bus runs for about an hour and a half in the morning and an hour and a half in the evening. If you allow the guy to use the asset, he ends up getting more options to productively utilize it. This is common in other countries. I think the British did a very good job when they left us. We still live with that legacy. But it's time we changed, and we brought in a permit policy change where the same bus, as long as it's safe, is permitted to do other applications. The second one is to start sharing revenue. I think the ideal example is multimodal transport platforms which companies can offer, and the state gives up control over ticketing to them and starts getting a fee per transaction. It's absolutely viable. Shuttle is a good example. There are quite a few models here. Shared transit, there's one Israeli company, I think now they are headquartered in the US. They have a model where people share transit. They don't share a car, they share transit. So these are more or less fixed routes, and they, based on your app summons, it creates a virtual bus stop which is less than 50 meters from your place. You walk across and you board the bus or a van and you go to another place. Now, all this increases utilization of the electric vehicle, and that's the viability game in electric vehicles. You invest more, but your running costs are so low that the more you run, the more money sense it makes. One more idea is for the government to limit its investment and role only to 3 areas. One is mass transit, like metros, etc. The other one is subsidized travel. We still need to treat public transportation as a cost to be incurred for economic growth in the city. It can never be profitable. Nowhere in the world is it profitable. So viability gap funding is important. No private sector company is going to find it attractive to do those subsidized segments, whether they are the lower income travelers inside the city or remote travelers. Those need to be subsidized. So the government takes care of only that part, and those which are remunerative, they give it up so that the private sector plays and brings the cost down. So you allow free competition, there is the point. So if we do this, we get quite a few action points. One is to enable open competition in a few segments. The government needs to stay away. They just need to control safety, nothing else. Because everything else, the private sector, the competitive pressures will take care of. Safety is the only concern for the government. We should have some standards for that. That's not a problem. The second area, bring in best practices in those businesses which you are doing yourself. That, for example, subsidized travel, the culture of giving out gross cost contracts has started now. That's a good step, because the expectation is your fixed overheads remain the same. You improve your network, and because of the competitive pressure during bidding, you're able to keep the price lower than what you can manage yourself. Now, given this, it's important to start learning to tender for services rather than products. As a country, especially in buses, we are used to tendering for buses. But what really matters is capacity, route, and schedule. We should be tendering for these so that the most efficient solution is provided by the private player. Once again, the recent Uttar Pradesh tender was amazing. They've done precisely this. They've not bothered about what is the wheelbase and what's your tire size and all that. They've just said so many seats, so many passengers capacity. My peak hour traffic load, I need a crush load of so much for 6 hours per day. And these are my depots where you can charge. This is the route and this is the frequency. Now you do it with 50 buses or 300 buses, it's your problem. You bid for this route and you bid for this frequency and this schedule. So it becomes far more efficient. The best minds can actually work on competitive solution design. Finally, of course, the infrastructure. We need a few enablers, like what Raj was talking about. You need charging stations, not just for buses, but also for cars, etc. But you need to give up real estate for this. You need to draw a power line there. So the government focuses more on incurring costs in these areas, but it can be commercial. I think it's still viable. We don't need special rates as long as we run enough kilometers. The other thing which we are conceiving right now, we are doing this with a lot of like-minded multinationals. Michelin is on board, Marubeni is on board. We are trying to create an e-mobility company which will do the following. They will offer vehicles, maintenance, battery management, power management, value-added services. This company will offer this to both the public and private sectors. And this will be done with a supply chain which has the OEM who supplies the vehicle, the maintenance contractor, the energy management contractor, etc. So, and the idea is to do this in a safe, predictable, branded manner so that it becomes a sustainable and a scalable activity. And of course, the investments come from equity and debt investors. And there is also a way of solving local problems by creating smaller special purpose vehicles in each of the cities where there is mobility. And we have branded Loop along with these companies, and we are hoping that we'll be able to demonstrate. We are not treating this as a business proposal, we are treating this as a business initiative for the ecosystem. So all of us are having minority stake in this company, nobody is taking a controlling stake. Finally, the product, once again, it's a commercial vehicle for India, and what matters is the application. To talk about what Raj said, the word is not, there are a lot of opinions, it's actually a lot of options, because the swap option works brilliantly for about 30-35% of the market, while it doesn't work for the balance, and the fast option works for something else. So these are options. You have to look at it for technical feasibility, operational feasibility, and financial viability. But you can create products, and I'm proud to say anyone who goes to Ahmedabad next, take time off, go to the BITS corridor, you will see the world's first efficiently and competitively running swapped buses. Nobody has done this. We are very proud of what we've done with Sun Mobility. We swap a 650 kilo battery with 65 kilowatt hours right now, going up to 72, I think. And we hope to start offering this solution across the country. The pilot has been extremely successful, and there are a lot of commercial benefits to this. First, for India, remember we have, right now, if anyone claims that they have an electric vehicle, including Ashok Leyland, if anyone claims that he's got an electric vehicle which will run successfully in India for a period of 10 years, he is a fiction writer, because he has no evidence. He's got no concrete basis to state this. The reason is this, we have extreme summers. All the EV buses which have been running, maximum is about 6 years, and it's been running in the temperate zones. Not many in the tropical zones, definitely not more than 2 years. So extreme summers, we have flooding in low-lying areas. We need to apply our mind. It's not a developed, fully developed infrastructure in India yet. And one peculiar thing is the monsoon, which doesn't rain, it pours. And this comes with its own problems in isolation errors and other problems, and you need to have an extra protected vehicle because of the monsoon. And dust storms, everybody's heard of what we get in Lucknow and Delhi and all that, the Andhi. And of course, the dust pollution levels in our cities itself is quite high, and these two are very different. The dust storm has a momentum to it, the dust pollution doesn't carry momentum, and different things behave differently. I can tell you, I've been designing vehicles. Next one is the duty cycle. We have a very, very high daily range. So in India, there are some cities which have 26 degrees Celsius between peak temperature in the day and lowest temperature in the night. And your bus behavior has to be within 3% of the usual attributes. So you have to engineer product to suit this. Traffic start-stops, all of us know it, but the biggest challenge for us as bus makers is peak hour traffic, inching or stopping on a flyover with 118 passengers on board. that's a nightmare to handle, whether it's diesel or electric vehicles. So you need to design your entire transmission and torque strategy to suit this. Because you don't make different buses for the flyover, another one for this place, etc. You make one bus. And customer chooses to use it where he wants. So we have quite a lot of such problems. And of course, the famous Indian driver's habit. So he has a sudden desire to honk. That's fine. It doesn't cost me much. But he also has this sudden desire to switch the lane where he should not be. So we have to necessarily build heavy batteries in the bus, and all that lateral load, it needs to take that kind of cycle for about 10 years at speeds of up to 55 kilometers. So it's a little difficult to develop such products. So for your information, we finished the product development in October 2016. 2 years, I didn't have the guts to take it to the road. So for 2 years, we've been running it inside Chennai city for safety and reliability trials, and we had phenomenal learnings. And after all that, when we started running in Ahmedabad this year, in January, summer was still a learning, monsoon was still a learning, and we still had to do a few tweaks to the product. So we are a long way off in terms of extremely good product and reliable product, same level of diesel products. And finally, the technology, I'll go to the swap, etc. But right now, we need to realize that there are two criteria that have to be satisfied for electrification of any application. One is the technology readiness. The second is the financial viability. It has to be at least at par with diesel, if not lesser cost, at a total cost of ownership level. So our assessment as on date is that for the intra-city buses and light commercial vehicles, we have the technology, no problem. But we are expecting financial viability to come for buses only by 24, financial year 24. And for LCVs, it's as late as financial year 28 because it covers only about 150 kilometers per day. For intra-city, we are expecting the tech to be ready, not product. I can show you 5 buses which keep running, but we need 8,000 buses running every day across the country. So the tech readiness for that is expected by 22, both in terms of battery and chargers, and the financial viability, we are expecting it by about financial year 27. And for trucks, it's even further. We'll need to find some solutions, and we expect it to be viable only by 31 or so. We do not expect operators to move to electric mobility in the long distance trucking segment. So for intra-city, you have fast charging battery swapping, slow charging. We know them all, we offer them all. It is dependent on the specific solution, what is required in that specific route and for that schedule. Similarly, for intercity, you have range extenders like micro turbines, etc. And you also have fuel cells, which everybody says every year it's coming in the next 8 years. So it's one of those things which just keeps moving away from you as you walk towards it. But last 2 years have been much more encouraging. Fuel cell costs have come down. Hydrogen projected prices have come down. So there's a chance that we might get there. Light commercial vehicle, slow and fast charging. Both options are feasible and viable, and battery swapping as well. But the advantage with commercial vehicles compared to cars and motorbikes is that these more or less predominantly run on fixed routes. It's not that they keep changing and going any which way they want. So it's much easier to plan the energy which should go into the vehicle for it to continue running. So I have a simpler problem to solve. But my bigger problem is that the stupid thing runs for 18 hours a day. Cars I think are an average of about 3.5 hours a day as of today. So it's got different challenges, and typical battery prices for commercial vehicles tend to be higher because of the fact that it needs a more robust thermal management system. It has far more structure to it because of the high duty cycles, etc. And for trucks, we are guessing, we don't know for sure. You need high energy density batteries. Otherwise, your truck will be carrying batteries instead of payload. So you need to reduce the amount of battery. You need e-highways. Siemens has started piloting it in 3 cities globally. And of course, fuel cell option is there. That's pretty much it. So I think we have various sites to look at, and it'll be nice and exciting is the word for it. Very, very interesting and exciting time. Thank you.
Thanks, Karthik. That's a comprehensive outlook on the e-mobility stuff.